Welcome back to another edition of Why It Works. I'm Joelle Martinek from Ginger Soul Photography, and today we are looking at this gorgeous image of Isabella, a ballerina here in Los Angeles. And so the first thing that we sort of take a look at is what draws my eye in most is, obviously it's the reflection in the mirror here, right? So we're looking, usually your eye is drawn to eyes or a face, right? So we sort of take a look here at her in the mirror, right? So I saw this mirror while we were doing this in studio shot, and I was like, oh, let's do something just a little more simple, not big dance poses, but still gives us that feeling of, what it feels like to be a dancer. And we spend so much time in front of the mirror, not as a vanity thing, but as a tool while dancing. So I just thought it was super appropriate, right? So a couple things I'm going to point out, right? So there's window light over here. So I had her turn her face in the direction of that window light. So what you can see here is that her face is illuminated because that window light is still coming from over there. So that's the first thing, right? We're really accentuating that, right? And what it does over here is it creates this really beautiful long line on her neck. So love that. And then, we're using foreground, right? So that means that there's something in the front of the frame, right? So I loved, the simplicity of having her in the foreground here while we're sort of looking at this reflection of her in the mirror, right? So you feel what it does is it creates lots of depth, right? So we feel, if we're reading this photo, right, the first thing you sort of bump into is her back and this, which is a little bit blurred, right? I was most likely, if this makes sense to you, if you're a photographer, I was most likely at an aperture of a 2.8. I do shoot on zoom lenses, so that's typically the lowest my aperture goes. So what then I focused here on her, right? So it creates this lovely blur with her here, right? And then we see that window light there. And again, just, sort of the mimicking of the pose in the front here to the mirror here really allows us to sort of feel that depth, right? So her in the foreground creates depth, right? And then it automatically reads our eye into that reflection of her in the mirror. So, there's that. I do love that her tutu here in the foreground as well sort of like takes us off the edge of the frame, right? It fills out. There's no space of anything else coming in here at the edge of the frame. So I love that. And then I did a black and white conversion on this one because it just felt like the colors of the studio and her tutu was purple. This felt really elegant to me, and it just simplified the feeling of the photo. I'll drop that color version in and you can tell me what you think. So here's that color version. I liked the simple elegance. This felt like a, sort of a piece of like old artwork, like if you know the photographer Harvey Edwards, it felt, a little bit different than what he did, but like sort of in that same vein. So I was inspired by that. And I love this shot, right? It's not a big dance pose, but it still is very effort, like, oh gosh, if I had an English word for it, reminiscent is also the wrong word, but of just, what it feels like to be a dancer in those quieter moments, right? When you're by yourself in the studio or getting ready for a performance. So this is what made me think of this, and then if we sort of look, we're using that rule of thirds, both here and here, so that, neither one of those things is dead center. And that creates a little bit of interest as well. But I definitely highly recommend you playing with a little bit of foreground in your photos if you're playing with photos. And that is why this image works. So don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me if you like this series, if there's other sorts of images you would like to see. And I hope you have a great day.